If there's someone in your life right now, a parent, a grandparent, maybe even a partner, and a small part of you wonders if they're nearing the end of their journey, then please pause everything for a moment. This isn't a video meant to scare you. It's not a scripted drama or a viral stunt. What I'm about to share comes straight from the real world of hospice care, from the hands and hearts of those who walk people home in their final season. And as someone who sat in that quiet hospital room, holding back tears, trying to be strong for someone I loved, I'll be honest with you. This was one of the hardest stories I've ever heard, but it changed me. And it might change how you see everything too. It began a few months ago in a quiet conversation with a hospice nurse named Carla. She's been at bedsides for nearly 20 years, not just tending to bodies, but witnessing souls. She's held hands as breathing slowed. She's heard last words whispered between fading breaths. She's seen the sacred and the silent. And when I asked her if there were any signs, any patterns that families should know about, she nodded, then said something I'll never forget. "There are signs," she said softly, "not in the final days, not in the last few hours, but a full year before death, and they show up again and again. Most families don't notice them until it's too late." That sent a chill down my spine, because no one talks about this. We think death announces itself loudly through machines, diagnoses, sudden events. But what if it doesn't? What if it whispers? What if the people we love begin saying goodbye long before we understand what's happening? Carla told me about 6 signs she sees over and over, and I'm going to share them with you now, just as she shared them with me. And if at any point something hits your heart, if it reminds you of someone you know, I want you to do one simple thing. Type "yes" in the comments. That single word might seem small, but it tells the rest of us that we're not alone, that you've been there, that maybe you're there right now. Before we begin, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to this channel. We're creating a space where hard truths are spoken with care, and where no one has to go through this in silence. Maybe this video won't seem urgent today, but one day it might mean everything. Carla looked at me, her voice calm, and said, "The first thing we see isn't a cough or weight loss. It's emotional. People begin to pull away from life, and they don't even know they're doing it." She described how people who used to smile and spark conversations slowly become quieter, not sad, not depressed, just inward. They stop reaching out to friends, they cancel dinners, they sit in silence more often. They even start gently declining visits from those they once loved to see. "It's not despair," she said, "it's almost peaceful, like their soul is beginning to prepare, like they're getting used to the idea of not being here." I asked her, "Doesn't that frighten the family?" She gave a sad smile. "It does, but most don't recognize it. They think their loved one is just slowing down, needing rest. But really, it's something deeper. It's the spirit beginning to let go." And in that moment, I thought of my grandfather, how we used to sit at the table every evening, plate in hand, laughing at stories, until one day he just stopped. No explanation. He stayed in his room even when the game was on. We thought he was tired, but maybe he was saying goodbye in his own quiet way. Then Carla said something that gave me chills. "They start talking about traveling." I blinked. "You mean future vacations?" She shook her head. "No. They talk like they're already going somewhere. They say things like, 'I need to pack soon,' or 'I think my train's coming.' One man asked if his father was waiting at the station. His father had passed decades ago." She told me it doesn't matter if the person is religious or not. This language of departure shows up again and again, and no one teaches them to say it. It's like some ancient part of the brain or the soul knows what's coming and finds its own words. I remembered my great aunt, who rarely left home, telling my mother one night, "The boat's coming soon." She passed 3 weeks later. So now I ask you, has something like this ever happened to you? A strange moment that didn't make sense until now. If it has, please type "yes" in the comments. That one word might seem small, but it tells the rest of us that we're not alone, that you've been there, that maybe you're there right now. And if you're still with me, thank you.
It takes courage to hear something like this, but I believe stories like these aren't meant to stay in the dark. They're meant to be honored. And the person you're thinking about right now, they mattered. They still do. Let's keep going, because what Carla shared next may be the hardest sign of all.
Carla leaned in with that same gentle seriousness she always carried, the kind of stillness that tells you something sacred is about to be said. She took a breath, steady and slow, then finally spoke. "The third sign," she whispered, "is one of the most tender things I've ever seen, and also one of the most misunderstood." She paused, not for drama, but because she knew the weight of what was coming. "They begin to give things away," she said, "but not because they're decluttering or trying to downsize. It's something deeper than that. It's their soul beginning to pass things on, not just items, but pieces of their story." I sat still, listening, feeling the truth in her voice. "It might be a photo album," she said, "or a ring, or a letter they've kept for decades. And when they hand it to someone, it's almost never random. They'll say, 'I want you to have this.' And in that moment, it's not just a gift, it's a message." She told me about a quiet woman in her 80s who gave her grandson a battered old toolbox. "He thought it was junk," Carla said with a soft smile. "But she took his hand and told him, 'This belonged to your great-grandfather. He built our first home with it. I want you to build things with care the way he did.'" A week later, she passed. "It's never about the thing itself," Carla said. "It's about the story inside it, the wisdom, the memory, the meaning." And as she spoke, I thought about a moment I had long tucked away. Months before my father's stroke, he handed me his watch. He didn't explain, didn't make a speech. He just placed it in my palm and said, "Keep it running." At the time, I nodded, smiled, maybe even joked about it. But now, I get it. He wasn't just giving me a timepiece, he was giving me a quiet message that my time would go on even when his stopped, that I should carry forward what he could no longer finish. So if someone in your life has been offering old keepsakes, letters, worn-out jackets, or photo frames, don't dismiss it. Don't put it in a drawer and forget. Ask about it. Listen to the story behind it, because you may be holding their unspoken farewell. And it's not a sad thing. It's an act of love, a sacred handing over of the torch, their way of saying, "You matter enough to carry this." The fourth sign, Carla told me, was more spiritual, but not in the religious way most people expect. "Even those who've never once prayed," she said, "start to ask bigger questions." She leaned back in her chair, voice quiet, almost reverent. "It's not fear I see, it's reflection, a kind of softness that wasn't there before." She described how patients begin to wonder out loud, sometimes to their families, sometimes just to the air. What comes next? Why are we here? Will I see my loved ones again? It doesn't matter if they were devout or skeptical all their lives. Something begins to stir inside them. It's like a shift happens, like they're letting go of the physical world, not because they're giving up, but because they're making peace with something beyond it. She told me about a retired Marine named James, a man who once joked that he didn't believe in anything but coffee and cold beer. One night, as she sat beside him, he stared quietly at the stars through the window and whispered, "I think someone's waiting for me." He didn't say who, he didn't say where, but the calm on his face said more than words ever could. He passed peacefully the next morning. In that final year, Carla said, Many people begin reaching for something bigger, something they don't have a name for, and sometimes they find it. That hit me in a place I didn't know needed to be touched, because it reminded me that we are more than bones and breath. We are soul and story. And sometimes, before the end, the soul stretches beyond this world in ways that defy explanation. So if someone you love has started asking strange questions, reflecting on the stars, or showing a sudden tenderness when they speak of life, don't dismiss it. It might be their way of reaching for peace. If that moment sounds familiar to you, please type yes in the comments. It tells us that someone else has seen it too, that you've felt the quiet searching, that maybe you've begun your own. And if this video has moved something in your heart, even a little, take a second to like it and subscribe. You're not just helping a channel, you're helping build a space where real endings are honored and real stories remembered. Because what Carla told me next, the final two signs, they weren't about symptoms, they were about mystery. One of them gave me goosebumps because I saw it myself and never understood what it meant. Until now.
Carla folded her hands and leaned in just slightly, as if the weight of what she was about to share needed more than words. It needed stillness. The fifth sign, she began quietly, is one of the most mysterious and yet one of the most comforting things I've ever witnessed. Her voice softened, and she looked straight into my eyes. They start seeing someone you can't see. She paused, letting the silence breathe between us. It doesn't happen to everyone, she continued, but when it does, it's hard to ignore. They'll begin glancing at corners of the room, smiling at empty chairs, speaking in low tones to someone only they can sense. She gave a small, knowing smile. And almost always, it's someone they've loved and lost. I didn't move, just listened. And Carla went on to tell me about a man named Leonard, a quiet, stoic man who had lost his wife more than 30 years earlier. One morning, she said, he turned to me, his eyes full of warmth, and said, "She's been standing in the doorway all night. She hasn't aged a day." Carla didn't doubt him. She didn't question the logic. The peace on his face, she said, was more convincing than any proof I'd ever need. I asked her if this unsettled families, if it made them nervous. She shook her head. Sometimes it surprises them, she admitted, but more often it brings comfort. Because the dying, they don't look frightened. They look reassured, as if the people they lost have come to walk them home. Her words hit something deep inside me, because before my mother passed, just days before, she looked right past me and softly whispered, "Dad?" Her father had died when she was only 12, but the way her face lit up, it wasn't grief, it was recognition, like a reunion long overdue. And now, all these years later, I finally understand. If you've ever seen that moment, if someone you love began to speak to those long gone or reach out as if someone invisible was holding them, I invite you to type yes in the comments. Not just for you, but for the thousands of others who carry those memories in silence, not knowing what they meant. Maybe your small yes helps them feel less alone. Maybe it helps all of us. Now, Carla's sixth sign was different. Not spiritual, not quiet, not fading. It was, in her words, a final burst of light. She looked at me and said, "We call it the rally, and it can be both beautiful and devastating." She described how sometimes a person who's been slipping away, weak, unresponsive, distant, suddenly wakes up. And not just awake, but fully present. They'll sit up, smile, ask for their favorite food, make jokes, tell stories. They'll say things like, "I feel better today," and for a moment, everyone believes it. Carla paused. The family starts hoping again. They think, maybe this is the turnaround. Maybe we're getting a miracle. But she shook her head gently. Most of the time, it's not a recovery. It's a gift. A last window of clarity and energy. One last dance before the curtain falls. She told me about a little girl named Ella, a child with bright eyes who hadn't smiled in weeks. One afternoon, she looked out the window and asked to go outside. She ran barefoot in the grass, twirling, laughing, just for a few minutes. Then she turned to her mother and said, "I'm ready now." That night she passed away peacefully. And as Carla told that story, her voice didn't shake, but something in the air around us did. Because this wasn't just a nurse, it was someone who had seen life at its most fragile and most luminous. I thought about my uncle, bedridden for months, who one morning asked for coffee and a full breakfast. He ate it with joy, even cracked a joke about bacon. That night, he was gone. It's like the soul takes one last look, Carla said softly, at everything it loves, and leaves you with a memory to hold, something warm, something full. If you've witnessed that rally, if someone you loved suddenly became clear, bright, joyful just before passing, please share it. Just type yes. Your memory might help another family recognize the moment and cherish it rather than fear it. Then Carla grew very quiet, and I could feel the shift in her tone. It wasn't clinical anymore. It was personal. She said, "People always ask me, what should I do when I start to see these signs? When I realize the person I love is quietly beginning their goodbye?" Her voice was softer now. "Do I tell them I know? Do I pretend not to see it? What's the right way to love someone when their time is near?" She looked down, as if gathering all the tenderness in the world, then looked back up. And I'll never forget what she said next. "You don't need the perfect words," she whispered. "You just need presence. True, undivided, sacred presence." Then, leaning closer, she added, "If they're starting to drift, don't chase them with noise. Don't crowd them with false cheer. Sit, hold their hand, listen more than you speak. And when you speak, say the real things." I asked her what real things meant, and she looked at me, eyes soft, voice steady. "Say, I'm proud of you. Say, I forgive you. Say, you mattered. Say, thank you." She paused. "And if it's time, say, I love you. You can rest now." I had no words, just silence, because somehow in that stillness, I understood what she meant. We don't get to choose how goodbye comes, but we do get to choose how present we are when it does. And sometimes, that presence, that quiet, undistracted love, is the most powerful gift we can offer.
Carla smiled softly, the kind of smile that comes from years of witnessing truth in its rawest form. "Tell them what they meant to you," she said. "Tell them what you learned from watching them live, what you'll carry forward because of them. Say the words that have been sitting inside your heart for years, and say them now while you still can." Then she told me a story that settled deep in my chest. A daughter sitting beside her father as he lay near the end. They hadn't spoken in weeks. Too much unsaid, too much hurt. Their relationship had been strained for most of their lives, but on that quiet afternoon, as the monitors blinked and the room held its breath, she leaned close and whispered, "I forgive you, and I hope you can forgive me too." He didn't move, didn't open his eyes, but a single tear slid down his cheek. "That," Carla said, her voice tender, "is the power of presence. Not fixing, not perfect words, just freeing someone to go in peace." She paused, then added something that stayed with me ever since. Death doesn't always bring suffering. Sometimes it brings clarity, the kind of clarity that strips away ego and fear and lets people speak straight from the soul. And so, if you notice someone pulling away, or suddenly glowing, or handing you something that seems ordinary but feels important, don't look away. Don't dismiss it. That might be their way of saying goodbye. Sit beside them. Hold their story like a fragile flame. Tell them they mattered, that their life wasn't invisible, and that they left something good behind. Because when people are preparing to leave, all they want is to know they were seen, that they were loved, that their life made a difference. Carla went on to say that after 2 decades in hospice care, she's noticed something heartbreaking. It's not the families who cried the most that struggled afterward, she told me. It's the ones who stayed silent, who waited too long to say what they needed to say. Those were the people haunted by should-haves. Should have told him I loved him. Should have said I was proud. Should have asked that question. Should have said thank you. Carla said this work has taught her that recognizing the signs isn't just about understanding death, it's about recognizing opportunity, a final chance to be real, to show up, to say things that matter. Every goodbye, she said, is really an invitation to live better. And that's when it clicked for me. This video, these stories, they aren't just about dying. They're about loving well, about knowing when it's time to stop scrolling, stop hurrying, stop assuming there's more time, and start paying attention. Because we never really know which moment will be the last normal one, the last dinner, the last laugh, the last time we hear their voice say our name. So maybe the real question isn't just what are the signs of death? Maybe it's this: when that moment comes, will we have the courage to meet it with love? Before I said goodbye to Carla, I asked one final question. Does it ever wear you down, being around so much loss? She looked at me, not with sadness, but with peace. No, she said, because every goodbye teaches me something new about how to live. Her answer didn't just stay with me, it changed me. And now I want to ask you something. If someone you love is showing even one of these signs, what would you say to them if this were your last chance? What would you want them to know without a doubt? If that question touched something in you, tell us in the comments. Just say yes if this video echoed something you felt but never said out loud. Or, if you're ready, share your story. Someone out there might need it more than you know. And before we close, I ask only one thing. Please subscribe. Not for the algorithm, but for the connection. For more stories like this, the kind that make us feel, reflect, and remember what really matters. Because when we talk honestly about the end, we learn how to cherish the middle, the quiet breakfasts, the phone calls, the shared glances, the ordinary seconds that turn out to be sacred. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to what Carla shared. And thank you for honoring the people you've lost and those who might be preparing to go. If there's one thing I hope you carry with you after this, it's this. It's not about how they leave. It's about how we love them while they're still here. And in the end, that, more than anything, is what truly lasts.